Welcome to another edition of the Best Business Minds, where we interview business leaders and academics that write thought-provoking books. I'm Marc, Kramer, a serial entrepreneur who consults with entrepreneurs and family businesses. Today, I am speaking to you from Brunei in Southeast Asia, and our guest is Jill Lublin, co-author of Guerrilla Public Relations. We're thrilled to have you, Jill, today. So thank you so much for joining us. And this has been a hugely successful best-selling book. Guerrilla Marketing has been. And we're excited to have you today. So before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, about how you got to where you are right now?
Oh, thank you, Mark. So first of all, I am delighted to be here with you and excited to serve all of you and those listening. So as far as how I got to where I got, I actually, funny enough, started my career in law school. And I was in law school trying to figure out something fun to do because it wasn't exactly my place. And I started working in publicity and promotion in the music business while in law school, and discovered that that's actually what I really loved, is publicity and promotion, and the opportunity to really help people get out there. So I actually dropped out of law school and opened really my own PR consulting firm, then opened a PR agency, and then wrote Guerrilla Publicity, my first book, Guerrilla Publicity, which is now in its third edition. And once I wrote one book, I was lucky enough to have three more pass behind it. And my latest book is called The Profit of Kindness. And to that end, I now run media mastery intensives where I help people get publicity done affordably and quickly. And also I run kindness circles. So these are the things I'm out there doing now. And it's been a wonderful and evolving career.
So what made you decide to co-author with Conrad Levinson? And I was saying to Jill before we came on, because he had written Guerrilla Marketing, a huge success, co-wrote this with you, Guerrilla Publicity. And I had mentioned to Jill before I got on, 20 years ago, I was on his show when he had a national radio show for one of the 6 books that I had written. So what made you write this book, and why an updated version?
Well, it's one of those things. I mean, when you do what you love and love what you do, which I'm blessed and lucky enough to do that, one of the things that happens is opportunities start arising. And I call it tapped on the shoulder to write this Guerrilla Publicity book. And that was from J. Conrad Levinson himself, who I was privileged to know. And frankly, we had a literary agent. We got published with a major author, and it's now in its third edition, and it has sold over 80,000 copies. So it's just one of the things. J. Conrad Levin said to me, listen, publicity, you write the book.
Well, you're very fortunate to work with him. He was a really great guy and a very, very smart guy. And that book that he had done on the Guerrilla Marketing is like a Bible for marketing. So he did a great job, as you did with your book. And I had read your book when it first came out, way before I ever had you on the show. And now we read this version as well. So let's start with chapter 1. In this chapter, you discuss the evolution of publicity from traditional methods to new media, and it's really changed a lot. Could you provide some more insight into how one can effectively integrate traditional publicity methods, and if they're still relevant, with new media strategies to create a cohesive, impactful campaign, especially with the advent of AI?
Yeah, so I mean, listen, AI is great for a place to start your publicity, meaning you can write articles with it. And I love that. Just make sure it doesn't take over your voice and that your voice is authentic. And I think that that's really important in the discussion of publicity. And, honestly, I've had a number of clients who've done their bios, which of course is an important publicity piece for you to have, is a great short bio. And the bio was wrong. So you still need to really look at everything and make sure that it's representing who you are. The great news about today's world is publicity, traditional media is absolutely still working, meaning TV, radio, newspapers, magazines. People are still reading. They might read them on their phone, but they're reading it. And the thing that I'm excited about, call me an eternal optimist, which I am, but I will tell you the great news is that you can have your publicity doubled now, because not only are you in let's say a TV segment, but now you're archived also. And that is incredible. Same thing with magazines and newspapers. So your publicity is a gift that keeps on giving, and you're in multiple places simultaneously. Plus, podcasts are much easier to get. Um, so the good news is you can get media quicker now, and become visible much easier than you ever have been able to before. And the possibilities are doubled because of the archive situation and the ability to find you in all kinds of places.
Is press releases still useful, or is it better just to write an email to specific people in the media that cover your industry? What's the best way to get their attention, especially when they're deluged with information themselves?
Yeah, well, what I call a sexy headline. In other words, the email subject line needs to be attention getting. And it's not just press release enclosed, or, I follow what I call problem solution formula, because the media cares about their readers, their viewers, their listeners. In fact, when I wrote Guerrilla Publicity, I was privileged to talk to media. And one of the things that Entrepreneur Magazine said, which of course all of you would want to be featured in Entrepreneur Magazine, was that, what she cared about was giving value to her readers. So keep that in mind. And I think, a simple subject line that's attention grabbing with a quick, here's what it is, here's the problem, and a focus in the top of the email is a great way to do it. And then if you want further discussion, I'll call it, that's where the press release comes in. But I think quick pitches work really well.
And just a couple paragraphs, right?
Yes, just a couple. Not, one thing, listen, the truth is a lot of them print out stuff because they're journalist types and they want to see things. And things should be, yes, very simple, quick, and you better get to the point right at the top and make your best case right at the top, because they may not get further.
I find what's quite annoying is I get 3 to 5 emails every day, 7 days a week, for people to be on the show. And we're booked till May of 2026. Every Friday we're booked.
Wow.
And people write to me and they go, I love your show. And they pick out one of the guests. And then they go and tell me about somebody who's never written a book. And it's as if they've never listened to the show, because the whole idea is called The Best Business Minds, about business books. And yet they do that. Why do publicists not take the time to go and find out who they're going after? Because don't you think that's important, that you want to write to people that actually would cover your industry or write about you, as opposed to just scattershot?
Yes, and I think, everybody does different strategies. And listen, the truth is, you want to find the people who cover you. And my clients have, operate in the area of health or business. They're business consultants. Absolutely, we want to be on every business show and things that operate toward business people. So be focused on who you want to reach. That's what's most important. In other words, define your audience.
And chapter 2 provides a comprehensive guide to creating and delivering effective sound bites, emphasizing brevity, clarity, and impact. And we've just talked about newspapers, but let's go across radio, TV, and so forth. However, I'm curious about how to handle the evolution of a sound bite as a brand or a message changes over time. Could you offer strategies for updating a sound bite without losing its recognizability?
Yes, and look at Nike, just do it. I mean, we have,
Yeah.
if you look in our cultural icons. We have sound bites everywhere, and that's what you notice. That's what stays in your mind. For you as a business person, that's what I want you to create. And funny enough, interestingly enough, you will often say something that is the absolute great soundbite. And so one of the things I want you to listen for is, how do your clients respond and what do they respond to? So I have a soundbite that says, use everything you've got. Another one, which by the way is great advice for all of you, every part of who you are. I also have a soundbite that's the ooh ah factor that people remember, and they go, oh, what's the ooh ah factor? So you want a soundbite to create clarity, but also sometimes to invite a question like, what does that mean? Right? And you want people leaning into what you just said so that they ask, what does that mean? Well, how do I use that? So you want to look at sound bites. I have, and I believe in publicity systems. So I have a 30, a 60, and 90-day system for publicity. One of those systems is every 30 days, you look at your message. Your message is where your sound bites are. And that's the way to make sure that your sound bite is congruent, consistent, authentic, resonant with who you are right now. And so sometimes that does change over time. And if you look at consistency factor, as much as possible, stay consistent, but make sure that it's all those things I just mentioned, authentic, resonant, congruent, so that you are able to say it, and frankly, with confidence, anywhere, anytime. Also, I just want to say, part of the message, what's great about it is that you will find your confidence accelerated as your message really is authentic and who you are, and it just rolls off your tongue, so to speak. And some of that is a little bit of practice and a little bit of finding the right way. And what I notice, because listen, I've worked a lot with people. This is one of my skills and talents, is to help people really with their message so that it is who you are and speaks to what you want to speak to. And let me just say, what I've noticed is the confidence level of people really goes up when you have that, and when that's true.
How do you stay authentic and not sound trite?
Mm. You know, first of all, a soundbite is a soundbite because it's focused and simple. You're not going to sound trite if it's something that's really you. Like for me, the ooh ah factor, it's fun, yes. And by the way, I'm fun, so it's consistent, right? And it's expressive for me. And people will go, oh yeah, what does that mean? So I like that. And part of not being trite is that you don't feel trite. Listen, if you are interested and excited by what you're saying to people, they'll know that. And I don't be concerned about the other things. Just stay focused on what is true for you and what feels like a right communication.
Um, Additionally, how can individuals ensure that their self-promotion efforts remain effective and well received, especially in different industries or contexts where delivering on promises is crucial for credibility?
Mm. Okay, repeat the first part of that. That was a big question. So tell me the first part again.
So I said, basically, how can individuals ensure their self-promotion efforts remain effective and well received,
So
especially in different industries that you're in?
yeah, well, part of that is you will know. Number one, are people responding with sales? Because publicity creates prospects, which become sales. It creates expertise. It creates trust in the marketplace. It creates credibility, right? So sometimes everything doesn't lead immediately to sales, but it leads to the people who are your people, right? You got to find your people and your tribe, so to speak. So as you find your ocean of wonderful people to create relationships with, what you're going to see is that people keep moving to the next level, right? They say yes to you about one thing, whether it's your free gift or your promotion and the things that you have, right? And then they move to the next level and the next level and the next level. I got people 8 years later come into my media mastery intensive. They say, "Oh, I've been on your list for a while and I've been following you." So sometimes, and then sometimes people jump immediately. So I think that part of it is being consistent and persistent. That's a key. And making sure again that it's who you are, and um, putting forth a message that is who you are in the marketplace and what you care about. That's a key. And look at your message every 30 days. That's one of the things I suggest as a publicity system.
In chapter 3, you highlight the importance of authenticity and self-promotion and effective publicity. It's my understanding that being generally authentic and constant need to be on and ready to promote. How do you make sure, especially when you're talking to so many media people in so many different ways, whether it is you're on a podcast, it's a newspaper, it's radio, it's somebody who is an expert in the field that you're talking to that is talking about you. How do you make sure you stay authentic and not sound as if you keep repeating yourself over and over again?
So, part of it is just answering questions as they come and not being, to some extent, overly. First of all, let me just say, I like people being prepared, meaning you have, yes, a script. You know what your script is? A message. The message is authentic to you. So it is authentic. And then you have other key points. And those are called sound bites or key points. Again, I like people to have 3 of them. And yes, you're going to rinse and repeat. You know why? Because then it doesn't matter how you feel and what's going on in the world and what's going on in your family. You have a message that's concise, precise, and can be spoken anywhere, anytime, no matter how you feel. So I do think that's actually important. And if you follow my way and formula and, just have it be authentic to who you are, guess what? It's going to be authentic. It's going to be authentic. And yes, you might have to have different ways to sometimes answer the same question, and that's okay too.
But politicians are interviewed so often that everything they say seems so rehearsed. And a lot of times they don't even answer the question of the interviewer. Well, what do you advise to people who could end up getting caught in that trap of doing it, and then their whole messaging turns out to is not listenable?
Well, let me just tell you that politicians spend millions of dollars on publicity training. And there's a reason why they have very specific messages that they follow. There's a reason. And I'm not saying it always works, but the truth is, look at actors. They have a script. They have to stay on script and what would I call it? Communicate a message, right? So here's the deal. You got to have a basic message. You do. Otherwise, you're going to ramble. You're not going to make sense. And frankly, you're not going to be coherent and congruent, which I think are important. And I also think that just be a regular human being, be who you are, be yourself. In other words, when I work with particularly analytical people or people in a certain industry, whether it be an attorney or an accountant or certain very cerebral, I'll call it, they are more a certain personality than maybe my speakers or authors or sometimes, for instance, I had a gentleman who owned an insurance company, and honestly, I wouldn't let him do anything that was more. I mean, I had him do magazines and be interviewed that way, but not typically podcasts and other media because he was too monotone. And honestly, that's who he was. Not a bad thing. It just wasn't his best talent. So know what your best talent is and then stay in that lane with regard specifically also to publicity so that you do your best to show up the best, right? And that's knowing what your talents are. I had a woman in real estate just tell you from my media mastery intensive, and she was brilliant and articulate and talented and smart and all of these things. Well, guess what? She wouldn't come on camera. I don't know why. It was her own stuff, right? Whatever it was, psychological, scared to what, see her image, whatever it was. And I noticed in working with her and being consistent with the practice of her message that her confidence grew. And guess what happened? She turned on her camera and she started, now she's on camera. Now she feels good. Now you see what I'm talking about? So I think it's really important that, like I said, you know what your skills are, and then you practice the rest. I have people go in front of the camera, excuse me, go in front of the mirror and practice in front of a mirror. That's really good and makes, and helps with confidence and how you're looking and how you're translating.
I worked with a woman who worked with Dan Quayle, and she was who was vice president for President Bush 41. And she said she was the fifth person brought in to work with him. Not that he was a bad guy, but she said when you met him in person, he looked like John F. Kennedy, handsome, smart, glib. But when he went in front of the camera, he looked totally lost. She said you would go back and forth. And she said, I was the fifth person brought in to try to fix this problem. And she said it wasn't fixable. She said the camera just didn't love him. What does she mean by that, and why was that the case?
Well, I personally think almost everybody's fixable, but he's obviously already a very visible person. He probably had some bad habits, and part of bad habits is like every habit that can be fixed, but you have to focus on it, right? I mean, when you start exercise as a habit, it's not the first day out is not, you're not lifting weights usually. So I think we want to get good habits right from the beginning. And, that includes everything from posture to like a smile every so often. I had one gentleman who I won't name, who's fairly famous, who hired me because he was about to go on Larry King and he just didn't know how to smile. That's what he said. He goes, I never know how to smile and when to. So specifically, we were practicing, imagine this, smiling, seriously, for just like,
I believe it.
yeah, sometimes just a short amount of time. Make sure this is little something that when you're speaking and being interviewed, that occasionally you're smiling. You don't have to do it all the time, but that you're making a point and you're smiling, right? And so I think that that's important. And I do think that some people's bad habits get worse, including things like ums and speech patterns. So one of the things that's really good is record yourself, see how do you look now, and don't be too hard on yourself. Okay, but how do you look, and do you have some speech patterns that, whoops, I'm not noticing that I say a lot, or I might ask a question afterwards, or sometimes your voice will go up in a time where it shouldn't be so that it sounds like a question. So just pay attention and record yourself. That will be actually quite helpful to see what's working and what needs improvement. And by the way, we all need improvement. I mean, I am constantly in with mentors and people who can support me, including voice coaching, including improvisation and things that help me in my career. And so I think we all need support and mentors and help to find the right words to say in the right order, as an example, and certainly how to sound and look our best.
I don't know if you've been following this or not, but it's been all over the news. Bill Belichick, who was the Super Bowl coach of the Patriots, he's now a college coach, and he was being interviewed on CBS about his new book on leadership. And the interviewer asked him how he met his girlfriend, and she is 49 years his junior, and she cut it off. And she said, that's not why he's here. He's here to talk about the book. Those kind of questions are going to come up, especially if you're a well-known person. And the interviewer thinks the most interesting part of this conversation is not about the book, but about the 49-year difference, or you're married to somebody famous, or you've done something. How could she have handled that better? Because it's become such negative publicity for him that there are even alumni talking about that he's got to go, and he hasn't even coached his first game yet at North Carolina.
Yeah, and I have followed that story because it's obviously a publicity story, although I'm
Right.
not a big sports person, but it's a great publicity story. Now, at one level, she did the right thing because she's right. This is not the focus of the interview. She just did it in a very public way. So, the way to handle that would have been prior to the interview, you set guidelines. And by the way, a lot of people set guidelines. You guys don't even know this, but a lot
Yeah.
of celebrities and politicians and well-known people set guidelines about what can be talked about and what can't. But she's right. They were not there to talk about it. And frankly, he shouldn't be punished because of, I mean, the way she did it probably wasn't appropriate. And, certainly, I don't believe he should be punished because of this happening. He's a good coach, right? That's what's important.
One of the all-time greats. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what's key, right? It's not about his relationship. But see, one of my points is to use everything you've got. And what do people want to talk about? His relationship. So he probably should have had, honestly, like a 1 to 2 sentence answer. I love her. She's my partner. She's my love. And that's what I want to say about it. And then move on. Because when people are curious, you kind of got to answer their questions, but you don't always have to answer and go on and on and on specifically about what they want to know. I do like important responses and somewhat planned responses. I mean, come on, he's got to know people want to know about this. He's got to know they're curious, have an answer, and move it on.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank here now, but a former senator who ran for U.S. president, I heard him uh, on PBS being interviewed, and she was interviewing about his book, and then she asked him a question that wasn't related to the book, but was still related to what they were talking about, and he got angry. I mean, it was somebody. He was the senator from Kansas. His wife was a secretary. Uh, Secretary in one of the cabinets. I'm just forgetting his name now, but he was answered it so rudely that I think it ruined the entire interview for him. That if people thought about getting his book, he came across as a jerk after that.
I know, and this is a problem. So and unfortunately, we've got a society now where rudeness is unfortunately much more tolerated. And there is an opportunity that you can make people so wrong quickly. Actually, in media, this was never a problem before. It's become a very disrespectful society in many ways, including in media. So here's the problem with that. And a cautionary tale warning is to be prepared with answers to different things, but to also know, here's what I want to say. As entrepreneurs, as small business owners, as business people, listen, you're going to be in most media interviews. You're not going to be made wrong. You're not going to be dragged on the cross. I mean, none of this will happen to you, usually. That's not the media's intention, particularly, in the area we're in business. So I just want to say that this usually doesn't happen. They want you to look good. They want you to be seen and heard, right? And I think that that's really important that you understand that your job is to look good, to sound good, and to make the host look good, but to also just be your best self and to know that you're going to do the best job you can. And that's the best you can do, period. And don't over concern yourself with all the perfectionism. We want progress, not perfection.
Yeah, of course. So in chapter 4, you emphasize the importance of persistence and maintaining relationships with media contacts. And you talked about in 30 days and 60 days and 90 days, even when there's no immediate payoff. Could you share additional strategies for keeping relationships alive and thriving during periods where there's a lack of immediate reciprocity uh, or opportunities? How can one continue to provide value without appearing overly pushy or aggressive?
So, a couple things. One, to also know that the media also changes course, changes their relationships, changes stations or forms, or becomes a host in another show or whatever it is, right? So they also change. And part of it is when you see a good story written by that person or delivered by that person, say something nice. I loved how you delivered that story. I thought when you said X, be specific. I really got I really felt moved. I mean, when you can be specific and give them kudos for a great job done. Because I'll tell you honestly, the media, they are so mostly overworked, underpaid, stretched, lots of deadlines to meet. So it's really nice to hear that they're doing a great job. So that's one thing I would encourage you to do, is stay connected with great job kind of kudos, and of course, mean it, have read it, all that good stuff, and be as specific as you can where you can. And the other thing is to just say hi and see how they're doing. Like I had a gentleman who is a producer of the Fox News Network in the Bay Area who had me on for World Kindness Day, and occasionally I'll just send him a quick text, hey, how you doing, hope all is well, with no request, right? Because remember, they get requested of all the time. So that's the other thing, is just give them some nice thing, that you enjoyed, that you loved, and don't ask for anything. That's a good thing, because they get asked for everything all the time and pitched all the time. So you be the voice occasionally that just says, great job, I love that. Hey, how you doing? Just checking in, and that's it.
How do you determine what is media gold? And when you push it out there, because so many times I've done your work myself, PR and marketing for clients, a lot of PR, where they think, oh, we just got 3 new clients. Now they want to publicize it. Nobody really cares. They got 3 new clients. So how do you help your clients pick out things that the media will truly be interested in?
Yeah, well, and that's a great question, because realistically, and I know I'm right with you, the fact that you got new clients, or celebrating an anniversary with your business, or these are not newsworthy stories. So one of the things, there is a great alternative. This is one of my every 60-day systems, is to write an announcement, which is not a press release, but in your local papers, for instance, in your local business journals, meaning in the towns where you live all around the world, they have them. There's a section usually called People. And what they do is put you in for celebrating your, work anniversary, or getting nominated for a nonprofit, or an award, or something you won, or creating a new client, or a new launch, or whatever it is you're doing, right? That's where you can announce it. And you can do that every 60 days. And I encourage you to do this strategy, because you know what? This will put you out like nobody else. And this will get you name recognition to create the I've heard of you somewhere syndrome. However, on the rest of the news, so that's where you do that client generation strategy. However, with the rest of the media, it's really about, and the rest of the stories, it's really about what's the problem out there in the marketplace, and offering real solutions, not just hire you, but offering real solutions to people, golden nuggets for what to do about this problem. Or like a therapist, I was working with a psychologist actually. He's like, with the level of stress today, I'm going out in the news about here's how to deal with the stress of today's uncertain world. 3 things that you can do. Now, that's not the bulk of his practice, but it's going to be the actual piece that will get him the publicity he needs.
And for not overdoing it in terms of maybe sending out the same thing over and over again, how do you mix that up so you can actually, where somebody from the media will actually, or would be interested in opening up your email or taking your call? How do you mix it up enough that it keeps it interesting for that?
Well, you definitely want to be known as the resource, right? And so one of the things that gets you known as a resource is other media, because the media, I have to say, somewhat, incestuous. I hate to use the word, but it's true. In other words, when you've been featured in other places, they say, oh, you must be good. And immediately you're more featured again in other places. It's media begets media. That's really what's true. And since I'm from Michigan, I can talk about snow, even though I live in California now. But when you build, let's say, a snowball, for example, it creates and gets bigger and bigger and bigger as you put more snow in it. Well, that's about momentum. Same thing with publicity. It creates momentum. And media loves people who've been seen, been interviewed, have experience, are articulate. They know that you'll be a good guest. Does that make sense? So you want to be a great guest. You want to be known for the fact that you've already been in other media. So, oh, well, you must be good because others have already picked you. So that's one way, is start getting in and start small, start however you can, build it up so that you can say, I've been featured. And if it's on a podcast, great first, because now you got that articulation plus usually camera. But they'll look at your website. How do you look? How do you appear? How are you speaking and talking? And people are looking. So just know that. So present well and get started wherever you can with whatever baby step you can. The important piece is to get started.
No question about it. And that's sound advice, because so many people don't think about it that way and don't have a structured way of doing it. In chapter 6, you provide additional strategies for continuously updating and refining media lists to ensure it remains effective and relevant over time. How can one effectively manage the ongoing process of maintaining and prioritizing context in a rapidly changing media landscape, especially when media are being let go left and right all over, and that many of the media are just independent contractors that are working there? I mean, if you go to Forbes, there's nobody in the Forbes building anymore, where it used to be 3 floors of reporters.
Right. And again, that's true. But here's the thing, and I never want people to feel like, oh my God, media, because I actually feel that media has gotten easier, better, and faster for all of us, meaning the ordinary bear and the ordinary business person. Great news is you have access to media more than you've ever had before. And for exactly that reason, Mark, because we've got more independent contractors that are now columnists. And Google is a beautiful thing. So I definitely want you to use Google as a great resource for, who's writing business columns. Again, I want to go back to your local market, because they need you, the local resource, the great expert, wherever you live, wherever you are in the world. So that's important. There are always, we'll call them small business publications and business journals throughout the world. They are usually on lists, and you can often buy those lists. That's good news. And then, yes, there is always attrition with regard to the media, meaning, I think updating media lists every quarter is a great thing. Again, you can buy them from people who already keep them updated. Feel free to reach out to me. I've got resources for that. I also like Business Wire and PR Newswire, which are wire services which immediately get your story out there, quickly. So those are also a good alternative to reach the media in a way that reaches them quickly. But I think one of my tricks, guerrilla publicity tricks, is we don't go after like the editor-in-chief of major, publications, for instance. I want the person who is the small business editor, for example. And I love columnists who feed stories into multiple sources. Love those people. Including, by the way, Forbes columnists and Entrepreneur Magazine and different magazines that many of us know usually now incorporate columnists and independent writers. And that's a great thing. So you want to find who are the independent writers focusing on X, which is why I'll give you a great resource. I love Google Alerts. And so I'll put the word publicity into Google Alerts, and then I can see who's covering it and what they're covering and who are the reporters who are covering it. And that also helps build your list.
I never thought about that before. That's a great idea, to use Google Alerts and see who's writing. How often do you go and let's say you're looking for the right person in a publication, and just type in the publication into LinkedIn and see who crops up? And do you ever write to people that way?
Yes, well, that's the part, yes, because I love staying connected in social media. See who are, for instance, reporters on LinkedIn who are covering your different topics. And LinkedIn's a great place for that, as is Facebook, as is kind of X. It depends on the month. But yes, these are places where reporters are hanging out, and definitely go and look for that. Absolutely.
Here's a question from the audience. Given the intense competition and regulatory scrutiny in biotech, how can a small biotechnology companies use guerrilla publicity strategies to build credibility, attract investors, stand out in crowded, innovation-driven landscape, especially when they lack the budget of a big pharma?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Great question. I love seeing you on camera too, by the way. Thank you. I've seen your face, so I appreciate that. So a couple things. One is, and Mark, are you still there? Because I'd love to be able to make sure he's there to listen to the answer. So if you're
I'm
there,
sure he is, because he has not signed off. So go ahead.
oh, good. There he is. Hey, Mark. Well, I know he's been on camera a lot, so thanks, Mark. So I want to just talk to you about this because, I've worked in companies like this. Here's the thing. We got to find the story of what's the story, right? It's not just about your product, but like, what else is the story? Are you husband and wife owned? What's the story of how you started this company? Like, what's that backstory? So that's one of the things I'd like to look at, and have you talk about and look at that, like, what are the other parts of the story? And then maybe there is a story about, oh my God, who fought Goliath? All of a sudden, I can't remember.
David and Goliath.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
the David and Goliath story, right? I mean, that's an interesting story. Like, how does small pharma, how does small biotech go up against big pharma? That could be a good publicity hook. Like, wow, we can't compete. Like, just put it out there, like, straight, flat, wow. Why should people care about the small biotech? What's in it for them? And dig deep on that. And that's the thing to promote. That's your advantage over the big pharma companies who don't care about their customers, who aren't accessible, who are just in it for the money. I mean, I'm making some of this stuff up, but I'm also probably true, but I'm also looking at, where's your distinction, where's your leverage, and where's your use everything you've got part of your story that we can use. Like right now I have a woman who's Indian, and we're going after, she's a leadership coach, right? We're going after the Indian media to have her stand out, to have her be a focus of attention just because she's Indian. I call this use everything you've got. So I'm always looking, where's different part of your story where we could go forward with that. But I also think a really interesting story is the David and Goliath story for you.
Yeah,
Because
great.
people do appreciate, you're welcome. People do appreciate that, small business champion.
Yeah, terrific. Good idea. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Mark, if you can mute, that would be great. I much appreciate that. In Chapter 7, you provide valuable insights into creating a concise, effective media kit centered around strong press release. And people used to send out print media kits, but now they're electronic. Could you offer additional advice on how to make a media kit truly stand out in a crowded market? Specifically, what strategies can one use to personalize the kit without overwhelming the recipient? And how effective are elements like quizzes, trivia, and anecdotes in engaging the media?
So one of the things, and even since we've done the third edition of Guerrilla Publicity, let me just say this has changed again because everything's changing very fast in the media landscape. So one of the things I'm big on, and I'm going to say to all of you right now, less is more. Less is more. So I want you to have, a great photo. In other words, you need a good headshot always. You need a great bio, short bio, please. And, in all the courses I teach, we always work on the short bio, 4 sentences, typically. I want you to just focus in. Less is more right now. have a press release ready, but I don't think it needs to be front up. Obviously, if you have a product, you want some like a spec sheet on the product. How much, what is it? And that's great. But on the whole, short focused pitches are really working the best right now. And yes, things are delivered electronically. I like the ability to click on a link if they need to, but here's important, put the most important things in the email without taking them off the email. So in other words, your picture, just have it show up right there. Your pitch, show up right there. Your bio, show up right there. Don't take them off the email, because one thing media doesn't love to do is click on other things so much. Now, yeah,
in
so
chapter 8,
that works.
yeah, for sure. In chapter 8, you provide valuable insights. In chapter 9, you highlight the crucial role of a follow-up and publicity campaign and provide practical strategies for maintaining persistence. And you've talked about this throughout the evening about different times and how you approach them and so forth. Is there a time that you just kind of write it off with certain media people, or do you just keep going after them, hoping at some point that they will actually decide to contact you back?
Well, persistence does pay off. Niceness pays off. Like, don't, I like to say be a terrier, not a bulldog. So what does that mean? Yeah, you nip at the heels. And in Guerrilla Publicity, we suggest the rule of 7, meaning 7 contacts. Okay, 7 contacts. What does that mean? Rotate, email, pick up the phone, maybe reach out on LinkedIn or social media or someplace else they are, and rotate your connections and contacts. Be persistent, because you know what? They will know you're serious. And I'll tell you honestly why most people lose the publicity game, that you're not staying in follow-up. And they know you're just going to fall off, and they figure, good, we don't have to deal with you. Let me just tell you, if you stay consistent and persistent, those are the 2 key words, and nice in your approach. Hey, I know this is something that's going to benefit your readers, and focus on their readers, their listeners, their viewers. I think you're going to win the publicity game, and that's often how you get through. And when the other thing you can say, if they say no or you get that kind of response, here's the next question. Okay, got it. Is there someone else at the wherever who might be interested in this story? And then you know what? They get to be helpful, and they like that.
In chapter 10, you're developing. Oh, here's one of the things that before I go into that, social media. How do you really use LinkedIn in particular, and Facebook, and each of them goes to different markets, right? Facebook is more consumer, and LinkedIn's more B2B, and then you have Instagram that kind of goes maybe to both sides of it. What's the best way to use social media, and how often should you be posting in order to raise that visibility to grab people's attention?
Yeah, well, I'm about 2 to 3 times a week. I don't personally believe in every day. I think there's a little bit of too much sometimes, but that's me. Some people might not agree, but I think that's a pretty good ratio. And you want to look to see, again, where is your audience? If you are a business B2B person, you want to be there. If you're selling product, you probably want to be on Pinterest and Instagram more. If it depends what your business is and what you're really promoting. And I like to have, I'll call it a slight platform on everyone, but I don't pay 100% attention to every single platform all the time. I just, who has the time? I mean, I think we can all agree about that. But I do think the consistency factor, and particularly around the message piece we were talking about before, is have the right message in your social media. For instance, a gentleman from Australia took my Media Mastery Intensive, went through my the problem solution formula, changed it on social media, and got 250 likes that day. Now that's powerful publicity. and it worked. But that was also about staying consistent between his message and then what was on social media. So that's what I'm going to recommend the most. Be consistent with your message in publicity and your message in your social media, which is also part of your publicity because people are watching you, and that's important.
I thought this was interesting in your book. You emphasize the importance of involving customers in identifying unique qualities and incorporating their feedback into promotional strategies. Could you provide practical advice on effective methods for gathering meaningful customer insights, such as through surveys, interviews, or social media? Or I guess if they write about you on the internet as well, in one of those services. So, what's the best way to utilize your customers to help you really figure out what's the best strategy?
Well, testimonials are really important. Make sure you're asking for testimonials consistently. After you work with someone, while you're working with someone, make sure that when they say something nice to you, you record it quickly and use it and transcribe it. So I believe testimonials are one of the best ways. Ask them to give you a review on LinkedIn. All of these are really great strategies. Quizzes are really good. They're very popular right now. Survey Monkey for feedback from your customers is really helpful. Those would probably be my top three strategies.
So, you've been on with us almost 50 minutes. Is there something that you do, giveaway or something along those lines, in order to have the people here and people that signed up but will be getting it later to take advantage of so they connect with you?
Absolutely. What I'd love to do is offer you, I have a publicity action guide, which is simple strategies that you can use right now. And as part of that gift, great news is I offer you a publicity masterclass. It's live and interactive with me. You can ask more questions. I'm going to deliver you great content. And all of that is part of the gift that I'm giving you, which to get that, please go to jilllublin.com/guide, Guide. And I'm sure we can post it in chat and it'll be in the notes afterwards too. jilllublin.com/guide for your 2-part free gift, and happy to connect with you and help you in any way I can.
So, Jill, if you email me that, I'll make sure it gets to everybody.
Oh, thank you.
And I'll have it as part of the post as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And there you also put it into chat so you all can cut and paste that out. In chapter 13, the sample publicity plan provided in this chapter is comprehensive and detailed, which is helpful, but could be overwhelming for someone new to the publicity campaigns. Could you provide guidance on how to prioritize tasks within such a plan and how to handle unexpected challenges or changes that may arise?
So one of the things I like to recommend to all of you is, segment 30 minutes a week. 30 minutes a week. And if you can't do that, then do it in 2 15-minute segments, because I know you can do that. And focus on visibility building activities. The things we've been talking about right here today. I gave you some very specific things to do. And I would do them every single week, because then you're staying consistent. Then you'll be persistent, and then you'll see actions and results actually occur. So that's what I'm going to recommend to you.
In chapter 14, you provide valuable insights into the importance of media training, and we talked about Dan Quayle and others being mediagenic. Could you offer practical advice on how to handle unexpected or hostile questions during an interview while maintaining a composed and professional demeanor? We saw that maybe Bill Belichick's girlfriend could have handled it better, or how he might have handled it better. So what do you suggest when someone asks you something that you really didn't want them to ask you, or you feel like it came across as a negative, and yet you don't want to feed into that?
Yeah, and great question. So one of the things, this is called bridging technique. And again, these are things that this is why they spend millions of dollars on publicity. And here's a way that you can handle this really easily, is you say, Mark, that was a great question. You know what, I want to share with you about publicity and how to be more visible is. And just change the direction of the question. You don't have to answer everything they asked. And here's the truth. And again, they're not gonna want to make you look bad. Marc's gonna, as long as I give Marc a great interview, he's happy. And this goes for every media interview you do. If you're a great guest and give good information, and you're of value and benefit, people are going to love you. And you don't have to answer every specific question. And especially if there's something you don't want to answer, it's going in a direction you don't want it to, you can say, I want to share more about blah, blah, or thank you. And what I was wanting to really share with your listeners is those are called bridging. And you can do it anytime you want.
But how do you do that in a way that it doesn't come across as that you're dodging the question? I mean,
I think exactly what I just did. Marc,
Yeah.
thank you for asking, but there's something I really want to share more of. And then Marc, if I give your people who are listening here a great tip, like we are doing right now, isn't that what matters most, right? You don't care if I answer, honestly, most hosts will not care if I answer that exact question. They want the value and benefit for you, those of you who are here, those of you who are listening afterwards. They want the best interview for all of you. That's their focus. So don't be concerned about that. And frankly, it's not going to come up a lot. And your job is to be a great guest.
Yeah, no question about it. And enthusiastic. I mean, we've seen guests on TV that look like they hated being there, especially a lot of very famous celebrities. Harrison Ford's a terrible guest, right? I mean, he looks like it's the worst thing that could ever happen to him is to actually have to be interviewed.
Yeah, and some people really, Diane Keaton talks about this, right? How she's scared to be interviewed, and probably Harrison. Many of these people are actually very shy and introverted, and it's difficult for them out of character to do interviews. And frankly, listen, after you do a movie and then you're doing 24 hours worth of interviews, it's tiring. Now, you as a business person are not going to be up against that. You're going to be controlling and creating your own media, having fun with it, being a great guest on, particularly, again, podcasts are really fun. They're fast, they're effective. And so that's where I invite you to go first.
In chapter 18, there's strategies you would recommend in balancing clarity and creativity when writing headlines, especially in situations where the story is complex or technical. What's your advice on this?
In terms of just stay really simple. And again, I particularly in these days like to keep everything in a 1-paragraph pitch format that's just simple and orients toward answering the problem today and giving real solutions. That's where you stay focused and let go of all the rest.
So we're almost out of time here. We have 2 more minutes left. Is there anything that you would tell people now on how to utilize AI in a way that will enhance it? And maybe for people who can't afford a publicist, they want to do it themselves. How can AI be a partner in this?
Yeah, and by the way, I'm very much about everyone doing it themselves. Every program I offer, everything I do is all about how you do this yourself. And let me tell you, AI is a great tool. Don't rely on it totally because it may take over your voice, so to speak. And I want you to start with it, like, let's say get an article going, and then use your voice to edit and make sure it is congruent with who you are and your main messages. And I think that's a great thing. And especially watch your bio. I've had all kinds of people have incorrect bios from AI. So just really double check things. Use it as a great place to start from and offer you great ideas. That's excellent. And then keep moving.
Jill, I can't believe how fast this whole hour has gone. I've really enjoyed interviewing you. I know a lot of people themselves are very interested in this particular topic because, there's so many people also trying to get the interest of the media. So that makes it much more difficult to do now. And all of the valued advice that you give in this and this item in your guide that you're going to give them, I think can be incredibly helpful. So again, I thank you so much. I look forward to another version of this, especially after AI is out there for a while. I think there's another book to be had.
Thank you, Mark. I love being here and I appreciate all of you.
Thank you so much.